well, I apologize for the delay. We had a few technical issues, so thank you for everyone's patience if you're waiting online. We are going to jump right in. We have three individuals. Oh, actually, is that someone saying something, or do we need to mute? Today's meeting is, we are covering the child abuse curriculum and human trafficking curriculum. We had some questions from last board meeting or from committee meeting, and we will be addressing those here and then moving information on to the full board meeting next week. And we have three individuals. Oh, you know what? Let's introduce ourselves. My name is Jenny Earle. I am the chair of Standards and Assessment Committee meeting, and I represent District 1, which is the northern part of the state. Board Member Wood, would you mind going next?
No problem. Thank you. Leanne Wood. I'm District 4. I represent South Davis County and North Salt Lake area.
Thank you. Board Member Green. You're muted.
There we go. I'm Emily Green. I represent District 14, which is the midsection of Utah.
Thank you. Board Member Real.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Real. I represent District 5, which is mostly in Salt Lake County, West Valley, Salt Lake City, and Murray.
Thank you. And Board Member Brinton, Vice Chair Brinton, can you introduce yourself?
Looks like she's muted.
Yeah. Are you able to get on, Joanne? Okay, Board Member Brinton represents Southern Utah, the other end of the state. And I think she's having some technical difficulties, so hopefully she can get those worked out. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. There you are. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Joanne Brinton, District 15 down in Southern Utah.
Okay, thank you. We are going to get started with 3 public comments. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, give or take just a little bit. We won't cut you just right off, but just a couple of minutes to share your public comment. If you represent an entity, please feel free to share that so we're aware of that. And we're going to start with, the first person on my list is Deandra Brown, if you want to go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Happy to join you today. I appreciate the opportunity to attend and comment on this important topic. As mentioned, my name is Deandra Brown, and I am a survivor of child sexual abuse by my father. I also have the privilege of working with Prevent Child Abuse Utah to strengthen families and hopefully help prevent abuse. My personal story, I was homeschooled for most of my growing up years and really had no idea what I was suffering through most of the 4 years I was sexually abused. I didn't know what this form of abuse was, and I certainly didn't have the language to express what was happening to me. With the secrecy that follows this crime and entraps its victims, I emphatically believe it's crucial to use the words sexual abuse straight out, clearly, and unapologetically, especially for our 3rd graders and above. So I'm sure you have all become well-versed in ways that we can prevent abuse and support children disclosing. It's really important for us to have these discussions and allow our children to feel comfortable around the topic. We know that language is one of our most powerful tools for prevention. My own experience and the experience of so many others who support children and families is that children need clear and direct words to understand when something is wrong and when to ask for help. I know firsthand how hard it is to speak up when you don't have the language to describe what's happening. The same principle applies to prevention education. If we replace the clear term of sexual abuse with something vague like body safety, we really risk creating the same kind of silence that keeps children from reaching out for help. So to an 8-year-old, I am concerned that body safety as a term could sound even like something like falling and scraping a knee and needing a Band-Aid, not something that describes an adult crossing those boundaries in a harmful way. So our words matter. Clarity gives children power, and vagueness takes that power away. So the term sexual abuse should not be avoided. It names the offense itself and helps bring the truth into the open. So removing those words would be a step backwards for both prevention and protection. And I
Deandra, we're at just finish up. Thanks.
Thank you. I urge you to just continue having these important discussions, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Next on my list is, let me look down, Lindsay Buttram.
Hi, Chair Earl and committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. On behalf of the Policy Project, thanks for your continued commitment to protecting Utah students through thoughtful review of prevention education materials. I know this is not the simplest or easiest process, but I'm grateful for your work in this. As you consider the items before you today, we urge you to remember that it's our responsibility and yours, that our responsibility is to every Utah student. We know that 1 in 7 Utah children will experience sexual abuse before the age of 18, which means nearly 94,000 children. I'll say that number again, 94,000 children living in our state today under the age of 18. For them, prevention education is not theoretical, it's life-changing. While discussions around this topic can be uncomfortable, the cost of inaction is far greater. The risk of discomfort for some must be weighed against the safety and protection of thousands. Parents will always have the right to choose what's best for their own children, but the board has the privilege and responsibility to make decisions that protect all children. Your choices today determine whether students across the state receive accurate, supportive, and potentially life-saving information. We strongly support the board's processes, and we believe it's essential that experts, including representatives from DHHS, remain central to this work. Their expertise ensures that materials selected are both developmentally appropriate and effective. We also want to express support for the organizations delivering this work in classrooms every day throughout our state. These providers are deeply committed to Utah students, and their success depends in part on the clarity and consistency of the processes established by the board. We encourage you to consider how approval timelines, requirements, and expectations either support or create barriers for providers, and ultimately how those conditions shape the experience of students who rely on these programs. Thank you for your leadership and your dedication to this critical issue. The Policy Project remains committed to supporting the board and staff in strengthening prevention and ensuring that every Utah student and child is safe, informed, and protected. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe the last one is Alex. Are you the third?
Yes.
I have 2 on my list, and then the other person I don't think is the one that's speaking. So Alex Peterson, go ahead.
Yes, Alex Peterson. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. I'm also a mother of 4 children, ages 4 to 11. And I have a master's degree from Harvard University in education policy, where I focused on early childhood education and development. Like Deandra, I grew up in a home where sexual abuse was normalized, and it was something my 4 siblings and I experienced on a daily basis. We all went to our local public elementary school, and there we learned many times how to crawl under our desk in case of an earthquake or stop, drop, and roll if we caught on fire. We also learned the harms of drugs and promised to just say no. But during our early years, as we were all subjected to daily sexual abuse, never once did the 5 of us learn at school or church or anywhere that what was happening to us was illegal or immoral or where we could go for help. Like Deandra, we didn't even know that what was happening to us had a name, that it was called sexual abuse. It was just normal daily life, and we had no context to understand that it was unacceptable. We also didn't understand the life-damaging long-term effects it would have, as all of my siblings have struggled with a range of related challenges, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, infertility, the list goes on. And I strongly believe if my siblings and I had been taught about sexual abuse prevention in school, we could have been spared irreparable harm. This man could have been caught, and there wouldn't have been the several victims in our community who came after us. One of whom recently told me she wished she had never had children herself because she's afraid she can't protect them from this individual who ruined her life. I now have 4 kids of my own. My husband and I have prevention conversations regularly with them, but we all know that most children who are abused are actually most commonly abused in their own home by someone they know and trust, just as I was. We also know the rates of children abusing other children is on the rise as well. And I feel strongly if my 4 kids have to miss 30 minutes of a math lesson or a social studies lesson once a year or once every 2 years, perhaps they're made to feel a bit uncomfortable or they're a bit bored if they've already heard this at home. But if that's the price our children have to pay for a classmate to hear this message for the very first time, to hear that they deserve to be safe, they deserve to be protected, and that what's happening to them has a name, it's not okay, and they can get help. That's a small price for our family to pay, and we'll do it gladly again and again. And I hope your families will as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for the comments. Those of you that took the time to come and to share your thoughts with us. And we're sorry about the experiences you've had that have been harmful. And we're grateful that there's resources out there that can help. So thank you. We are going to start today. So just ending where we were last time, we had a few recommendations for some of the materials that we're moving forward. And board members, I've looked down the items that we had suggested or recommended from the previous ones, and they met those recommendations, at least what we put forward at the time. And I'm looking to see if there are additional comments related. And I can't tell if the hand's up. So best way, you can either unmute or just raise hand, either way. So
I'm actually looking for some clarity on where are we in the agenda item, the attachment, the CSA underscore HT, or at that one?
Well, do you want to look at the items separately? Is that what you're asking?
Oh, well, I'm just sorry. I'm actually just wondering where you want us to start more clearly. Like,
yeah, hold on just a minute because I was looking at the one agenda there. So we've got, yeah, it's just number 2, which is our action item. And if we can look at separate, do you want to look at organizations separately? Is that the preference? So Prevent Child Abuse Utah, PCAU. There were a number of recommendations there. So we'll start with any discussion related to that.
okay, so I am in the Fall Instructional Materials Review Cycle 2025, draft number 1, November 25, 2020. Yeah, 2025. Recommended action for Standards and Assessment Committee. Correct. Staff recommend that the
Yes.
committee approve, the following items. Okay, I do have some discussion with the PCAU. I don't know if now is the appropriate time.
Now would be the time.
All
I think
right.
now is the right time.
Okay, so first of all, this is it's been a long time, a lot of effort from so many people around this subject, and I think it's come a long way. I think it's developed tremendously. I've spoken with a lot of people, worked with community members like a decade ago in this realm. Like, this is something that is, near and dear to my heart. I am a mother. I have 5 children. you know, I remember this discussion when we first started to have this, to work towards working with this new bill, finding vendors, reading through all of it. I mean, it's been a very long process. And so with these courses starting now in school, what we're seeing is, in essence, is our product as it's being presented to our kids. And so I went in, I did sit in and I listened to some presentations done, and also I'm in a unique position where feedback happened in very close proximity to our experience hearing this. So I'm like, this is our effort, my effort, that manifested, in these classrooms. What I'm hopeful about is that we have a desire to improve and make it better. I do have some feedback that I would like to share, if it's appropriate, Chair Earl, to.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Okay. And I did send an email out to the committee members as just before we started this meeting, as I've gone through kind of pretty much with a fine-tooth comb, and also, that experience now where there was the whole process. I've lived through the whole process, both as a contributor to this, developing this program, and selecting vendors and fine-tuning how it's presented, to seeing what that looks like as it lands. So if I may, the first area that I would like to discuss is the amount of information and the time allotted for this discussion. Rural areas, obviously, sometimes it's hard to get to us. And a lot of my districts, it's hard to get to. I mean, I'm literally the middle of Utah, just left, right, north, south, east, west. And so Cedar, my area, they combined those classes into, instead of it being 2 days, which my understanding in the bigger cities up north, they do this class 2 days in a row. And I don't know the amount of time, 30 minutes and 30 minutes, what they've had to do in these other areas that are hard to get. And I understand the logistics. You've got hotel rooms, you've got, 4 people, you have gas, you have all of the scheduling that's required with all of the schools, and then all of the personnel that, the logistics are real. So they combined the 2 classes, which can be separate, into 1 day. What I observed in a 3rd grade class, and these are 8 and 9-year-olds, they're very, very young, 8 and 9-year-olds. It was a substantial amount of information that came very, very quickly. For those students, there was a little level of overwhelm that came with all of the different types of abuses. And I think, I mean, we're talking information that was delivered very well, very articulate, very, very clear. There was a lot, and this was done in 35 minutes. So you had a 2-day course whittled down to a 35-minute presentation for 8 and 9-year-olds. And you're talking about, it's just one abuse right after another. This abuse, this abuse, this abuse, this abuse, this abuse, neglect, safety, this, and then they go out to recess. I would like to prompt a discussion about how much information and the amount of time, and possibly address if we could have a standard that might accommodate an age-appropriate engagement for these students, something that might be more age-appropriate. The second thing is, I would love to see building in more resilience pieces throughout the entire presentation. There is feedback. If a student is having abuse happen to them, or if abuse is not happening to them, and a child is hearing this information and these heavy subjects for the first time, it naturally leaves a child overwhelmed. What I would like to see is more resilience pieces throughout after each category. And I don't know if other board members, I want to pause, so I'm not just talking at you. Is there any feedback on this part before, if I may move forward to the next bullet point?
Yeah. Let me share one thing, because I have talked with Board Member Green about this, and this is related to the resilience piece. In the section where it talks about emotional abuse, there's a question posed, and then the second question is, if a child believed that they were worthless, what do you think could happen to them? And then it goes on to cite hurt themselves, hurt others, lower self-esteem, hard time making friends. So I think we're almost sharing what, a negative aspect instead of maybe a more proactive way. If someone does that to you, how can you respond, kind of a thing. So I think the resilience piece, and I think that has to do with the heaviness of the content too, and the quickness of reporting it. And I do think, once again, I think there's an accuracy. We want to be as effective as we can in delivering of the material, that if it is crammed in too much, depending on the students, right, if they're not familiar with it, it can be an overload to their cognitive ability. So, and I do think, maybe this is more feedback for organizations presenting. And then we would, if we wanted to do this down the road, we could obviously put something into our standards that require some kind of a more specific thing, but it just feedback at this point, so it can be as effective as I think individuals want it to be, so it's doing what it's intended to do. Let's see, I think I have Board Member Rill, is your hand up?
Yeah, if that's all right.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Earl. I appreciate your feedback, Emily, and sending over your notes. And I agree with you, Chair Earl, about what you were discussing. And I'm taking out, the content piece of it. I'm a little bit concerned about the timeline, and I don't know if I know that we have been, well, I've been very appreciative about how thorough we've been, and I know that we've had all the curriculum we've gone through. We started with approving the standard, and then we've gone to the curriculum and gone through that with a fine-tooth comb to make sure and ensure that we're being appropriate, age appropriate, we're giving them the right material, we're approving the right materials to help these students. And now we're pushing on, in a very practical sense, like contractual deadlines that we've made with these providers through the RFP. And so I think all this feedback is great, and it leads to a great discussion, but I'm wondering if this is something sort of like what you were saying, Jenny, is like providing this as feedback for future, or bringing it back up at a later time, but approve and being able to move forward with what we've already gone through at this point. It's been so thorough, and we've had a lot of time with this. And so I'm just not sure if there's anyone that can speak to the timeline, or if we can talk to, we had the legislation that passed, we've gone through all of the reviewing, we approved the standard, we have now this curriculum. There's always, in every subject area, in every standard that we do, there's always room for improvement. But I feel like at this point, I don't want to do a disservice to our kids by delaying it even more and reopening up at this point. So I'm not sure if anyone can speak to that, or if there's, anyone that can talk.
I'll speak a little bit, and then maybe either
just
let's see who's on. I'm trying to
one more thing I was going to say is that because with the RFPs that went out, like, we also have a contractual agreement with them, right? Like, we told them we would provide them these things by a certain point, and they needed to start fulfilling their end of the contract as well, which they can't do if we don't approve these. So that's just to elaborate on that. Yeah, I think they're already fulfilling that element, meaning that there's already curriculum that's been approved previously, especially in this particular area. I think that if there were additional requests or considerations to be made, it would be asked to extend that, allow that current curriculum to be used, and then January would be a timeline to review that again. So I think that's the
that is a possibility. The other possibility is to move it forward, or the other possibility is to hold on it. Those are kind of three possibilities. I'm not interested in holding on it personally, but putting out for the body. But if there's additional pieces that might developmentally or otherwise be appropriate, I think that the body could extend that deadline to the January board meeting if necessary. So just kind of keeping that in mind. At least that's the way I understood it. If I'm wrong, our AAG could weigh in on that maybe. But the board would have to take action for that to happen.
So we would have to provide a temporary extension or something similar to the people that are using those materials if we did want to reopen them back up in that way.
It's not reopening because they haven't been, the current items haven't been.
But we'd have to grant them an extension on using the material.
Of the current content, yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Leanne, our board member Wood, sorry.
Can you help me clarify? Because I feel like I just saw the 201 email, so I feel like I'm coming to a conversation that I'm missing half the conversation to. Are we recommending? What I heard from Member Green, and maybe I missed it because I was reading her email, is that they took two sections and merged them together, and so we were concerned about the amount of time that was spent for these young children. So it's not necessarily content at this point, but the initial concern was timing, which could we not say you can't take two things that are supposed to be two different things and put them together? Have I missed something completely? I'm sorry.
Would you like me to
I'm
answer?
gonna let Emily fill that in a little bit if you don't mind, Emily.
Okay.
I think Sarah's jumping ahead. And so, this is a discussion piece, right? But Emily, I'll let you fill in a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a fair question. I'm probably coming out of left field here, and maybe I am, only because this just happened in like the last week. So it's a couple weeks. It's kind of definitely triggered what I would like to think is some productive feedback on this program that we are utilizing through the USBE, that we are sending out all over the state of Utah. I think that there's some things that we can do that will help streamline this and make it better. So the feedback that I'm giving are things that have triggered some concerns, and I'm bringing it to the committee because I do believe that this is the appropriate setting to discuss this, especially where we are being asked to move, the PCAU forward. If we can fine tune some of those pieces, then now is the time to do that. And I do have 3 other little pieces if you'd like me to continue. But Member Wood, did I answer your question?
Make a comment. Can you hear me? This is
Joanne, go ahead, and then we'll let Vice Chair Wood respond.
Okay, just so I'm sorry, I can't get my video feed to work. So I just want to share that this is coming from some real life feedback from parents and students who were in classes getting the 3rd grade curriculum in a rural area where the 2-day class was dropped down to 1. So that you all understand that this is like real life feedback from some of the children like in the class and their parents.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. Member Earl, I'm looking for your direction.
Yeah, Board Member Wood, Vice Chair Wood, sorry, did you have an additional, or should we let Member?
So to be clear, so there is some concern with 2 different courses being taught at the same time, which meant a lot of information kind of overload. But then you also have additional changes that you have not brought yet, that I am not missing the boat, that I missed some.
You are correct. You are correct.
Okay. I just, after with Member Rail saying, how do we make changes on this time? I'm like, apparently I have missed something because I didn't see motions brought before us like ahead of time.
I have not missed any motions, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We do get a lot of email, but sometimes I, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Green, go ahead.
Okay, I did want to also address the third grade. Again, we're like 8 and 9 year olds. And I want to preface this with I understand using the clarity and appropriate language is helpful. I'm going to push back a little bit on the third grade content with the use of some of those heavier words. Some of the third graders, and I'm going to say it can actually be both things at once. That it's good to give language, but it's also tipping into a realm of what is the debate of what's age appropriate. And I don't want to discredit and recognize, I do want to recognize that having language can be powerful. I have a concern because third grade, you're kind of still in a state of, I'll use the word innocence for children, where this is they can't even say the word sex. They'll say sex abuse because that concept was just introduced to them. And so again, with this curriculum, I wouldn't mind furthering some discussion on that. If there's a way that we can discuss on presenting it. One student said that we've learned about stranger danger, and that was enough. The inability to process sex. The next item, really, I think we have a lot of room to improve, needing to have clarity and expectation as an organization on how to bring parents into this discussion before, during, and after. I would like to recognize that sometimes it very well might be those people that are causing this harm. But again, I also want to emphasize, I believe that this conversation can address both things at once. So if I were to give feedback that the paper came back, that we have to prove that it is sent out, it is an opt-out form. For those parents, I believe one elementary, they had 14 students that opted out. The effort was made to call each of those parents to help them understand this was an opt-out, not an opt-in. As a committee, I think maybe we could discuss that because it is apparently confusing. There's actually quite a bit of confusion on what that form is. We can save that for a different day. That's just outside. Again, this is just feedback. The next thing is during. It seems that last year there was more involvement with parents going to this class. They said that some parents, they showed up. There was a sense of relief. They were like, this is okay. They didn't show up this year. I wouldn't mind addressing that because I think where this is the first time that a student has heard concepts like sexual, first time hearing that word, can't be both at once. This is heavy. And we can address that. And then after, one elementary didn't have anything sent out to them as a resource to further discussion with their student and prompt discussion with their student. Another school had that ready to go. They communicated that this was going to happen after all the presentations were completed. So there's a little bit of continuity or, clarity and expectation on what that interaction with parents before, during, and after should look like. I would ask that maybe we can, again, I don't know if we have an expectation for that. I don't know if that's written out in contracts. I would like to address that at some point. It may not be today. We can put it in for another committee meeting, but it is needed. And I do know that if you have to utilize interview questions to get a student to communicate a subject that they learned at school that they are too embarrassed and too distraught to talk about, because it's sex abuse, because they are too young to even say the word sex, and and you have to use that language to prompt discussion, that you have to use to prompt discussion for children that have actually been abused. That's what it looks like when it can be the same thing in both settings. So we need to address that. I don't know if it's a flyer being sent home. I don't know if it's an email. I don't know if it's I spoke with some counselors, some school counselors, a QR code, that helps kind of bring that up, prompt those discussions, help parents engage with their children about this subject. I think it would be really beneficial. And so I included the last 2 bullet points together. And so that is my feedback specifically about the PCAU program. So anyway, I'll hand it back to you, Chair Earl.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? I can share a couple of thoughts too, but I'm just wondering if there's other components of
Chair
discussion
Earl,
people have. Yes. So
may I address some of Board Member Green's concerns about the opt-out, at least just on the opt-out issue? So this is statutorily under 53G9-207 that the parents opt out. So the parents are given the information to opt out rather than to opt in. So I just wanted to raise that as a statutory requirement. So then I just wanted to draw your attention to that. The schools are they're informing parents when it's going to happen, that parents are to opt out if they want to opt out their children. And then if they want to review the material, they have the ability to review the material. And I'm happy to put that in the chat box if you want, so that you can see where I'm referring to as well.
I appreciate that. And that was actually another area. So we reviewed the flyer that had gone out. We had considered possibly including or having that district's school nurse that takes care of this include just the address of the district office building. What happened is that they received phone calls directly to the LEA, and then the LEA had to direct them to the admin, the district office building. So in order to maybe save some steps or confusion for everybody, maybe that's something that we consider incorporating into that official form that's sent home to parents.
I think that could be up to each LEA how they want to handle it once they decide what curriculum that they would want to use. So as a board, at the state board level, you're approving instructional materials that each LEA can then choose which to use. And then the LEAs, once they send out those notices, can choose what kind of form. But I don't think at the state board level that you're regulating or stating what needs to be in each form at the LEA level.
Mm. So the one counselor that I had spoken with had implied that form had come from the state. Do we create that form then? And if not,
I wonder if it came from the organization itself. I don't know that we've approved one for this area. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just not remembering that.
I don't.
I think we do
either.
for maturation. I think and those other classes, we approve it in the older grades, or at least a recommended one. Is that right, Tanya?
Yeah, Chair Earl, each of the organizations that are providing this material provide a sample parent form that the LEA can then take and use or modify if they want to add information to it and personalize it for the LEAs. So we do not provide a form from USBE, but the organizations provide it as a courtesy for those LEAs.
Okay.
Did
that answer that question?
Yeah, this is just feedback. I'm just bringing feedback on what a process looked like for a school district.
Okay, so you're kind of showing, we've gone through all the processes and you're showing on the back end what it looks like when it's rolled out.
Yep.
Okay, and maybe what some of those concerns are related to that.
I just call them little hiccups.
Little hiccups, okay. Okay, where do you want to proceed from here? We do have, I think, if I heard you have two recommendations that would be reflective of maybe components of the curriculum. One of those being, if I'm understanding, that more resiliency within the actual course content, possibly just because of the way some of the questions and things are worded, and maybe the other recommendation is around, I don't know if I'd call it academic language or maybe textbook language versus language that's understandable based on the age. So that would be age language. That's what I heard from that.
That's correct.
Okay. Board Member Brill?
I have a question. As I'm thinking about this, this is a similar experience that I have. Like, for example, we're about to do math standards. Not an expert. I'm fully aware of this. I'm no Jenny Earl. But I default, especially in this curriculum and in these standards, to the experts and Health and Human Services and all the folks that put this together, including, the standards that the requirements that we had for these materials. I default to those experts when it comes to language and age appropriateness on the language, because I am definitely not someone that has an experience of knowing what language is appropriate to be used at certain ages. And as I think about that, I wonder, like, every child is different, every parent is different, but this work is so important and this training is so important that I would hate for like an anecdotal experience that potentially was, emotional, or this experience that you guys are speaking of, to change the experts and the science behind how this is taught for all kids, and leave us at risk of not giving them the right information and training that they need. And so I'm hesitant to want to have any recommendations beyond what the experts have already recommended in regards to the language appropriateness language we should use at certain ages.
If I may respond.
Yeah.
There, I get humored by it's always an anecdotal. Any kind of feedback is always anecdotal.
Well, I haven't heard from anyone else. So I'm like, we haven't heard from any parents. We've heard only great things from parents all over. I mean, if my email was flooded, if I was just hearing about all these experiences that were terrible, I'm hearing experiences about how grateful they are, and how, like, experience about schools and administrators saying this has saved kids' lives. Those are the things I've heard. And so when I hear about a one-off,
this is where I argue that it can be the same, both things at once. It just can. And to give feedback is not challenging experts. It's giving feedback to the experts. If you develop any kind of product, you give feedback. You put the product in the middle of the table. You play with it, you fidget with it, you use it, you take it for a week, you do whatever it is, you install it, and products get better. You have whole departments for customer service meant for this. So I reject that having this conversation is by some means demeaning the experts in the room. I know that that's the number one thing that's used, and I reject it. I'm saying I have had a very, very thoughtful process in a district where we gave this, where I took notes of every single step of the process. And I'm bringing back some things that I feel like, if we say we just want to make it better, and then we're saying, oh, it's just anecdotal what we're saying, we want to make it better, we're contradicting ourselves. So I'll be more clear. Having all of this information given in a 35-minute presentation is too much. We need to address that. Not having ways to bring parents in on the back end, before, during, and after, maybe in a more thoughtful way, where we can have prompt, healthy discussions with parents and their children, because it affects them, whether they're getting abused or not, needs to happen. There could be a little bit more clarity. That might be more of an LEA thing, but if she's saying that this comes from the organization, I'm speaking to the organization, maybe we could include that as a helpful detail for parents. And as far as the discussion on the adult academic language or textbook language, I'm okay to just have that conversation, because part of being an expert also is being a parent and knowing how to talk to your kids about sex.
Right. And I didn't disagree with you on your first 3 points whatsoever. I was talking about the last point only, but thank you for repeating yourself. I want to be thoughtful, and I'd like to hear from the experts as you've brought up your concerns about the language. And I also am, I am very, from what I've learned through going through all of these trainings and understanding and talking to the experts, is that I want to also be careful I want parent engagement. I want what is in the code and what's in the law in that way. But I want to make sure we're also protecting the kids, as we know from all the data that we have, that a lot of times it's the parents who are abusing the children. So I want to be really careful about that as well. So I thank you for reiterating your points. I just would love to hear from the experts about age appropriate language, or if we have specific instances or actual language. I haven't heard what language you're specifically talking to for what age. I'd like to talk about that or discuss that. That's fine. But my point was just that I default to the experts who have created this curriculum and training and have worked in this field for so long, because they are the ones that understand the best way to help kids. So that's where I'm coming from.
So I would suggest this. There's a couple of suggestions so that we're not kind of bring down the temperature a little bit back to where the impact that we can make here. I would say and I'm just going to give some suggestions. The body can decide how they want to move forward on this. I do think that we can extend till January if we want to, and allow some of these things to be looked at. Sarah, you're correct. If they can review it, feel like, nope, this fills within that realm. I think there's no harm in being thoughtful about it. This is a curriculum that'll be used for the next 3 years. If there's some questions that came up, those are not invalid questions, right? Coming from anyone on the board. For whatever reason, they've done their research or they've had an experience, and it's fine to ask those questions. Those are the same questions that we're receiving from, the public themselves are coming in saying, I've experienced something and I would, this is how we would like it to be reviewed or looked at. So, Tanya, are you director? Help me.
No, sorry, prevention coordinator.
Okay, coordinator. Thank you.
I just want to let you know that PCAU's approval expires at the end of December. So if it comes to the committee in December and then to full board in January,
it would have to be extended. The board would have to extend. I am aware of that. If we were going to ask for at least them to consider some of these, or at least to go back and evaluate, right? That would be, the recommendation would be that they would need to. We would extend for a month and allow them to do that. And once again, I think this is really good material. A few questions to ask them if they would at least look at it and see if it fits that realm, or if there's ways to even just tighten it up a little bit more. So, Board Member Wood.
Is there anything in our current one that's different than what the standards we established? Like, is what because I haven't seen any specific language that I think, and I'm just wondering, where is it outside of the realm of our standards that we've approved? Is there because isn't this more about, we set these standards and they come and they pretty much have to align with our standards almost 100%. I mean, as they go through that instructional review, every rubric is, did it do this? Did it do this? And from what I've seen as we've looked through all of these, they almost parrot word for word what's in our standard to make sure that they're not altering it in any way. So is this a curriculum issue, or is this a standards issue? And are we going to have to redo our standards to align with new language? Can someone help me understand, since I don't have any specifics that we're discussing here?
Yeah, I think you have two things. One, yeah, you could just go through and read the standards, right, in the class, but that's not really the intent. Is if you've got third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, and I think they've done a good job of doing this. They've got the application in there. They've got the sound pieces that, you've got to tell more than one adult, maybe two, maybe three. So the question, I think, for me, and that was when I went back, I looked through all the curriculums we did. I spent a good day doing this, all the curriculums last year. The curriculums that are coming forward, when I say last year, I guess it was August, right? Someone help me. Time frame. So August, I went back through all of those for these elementary grades. I went through the curriculums we're approving now for the elementary grades, there is a stark difference between the textbook adult language and between language that is usable and applicable for kids that they can understand. And that's what I personally would be asking, is to just that abuse language, to make sure it really is, within that age group, whether it really is the right language to be using there, and in what way. So once again, it's not just the adult content or academic content, but that it's also have the applicability in a way that, and maybe it's just it's making it so it's not so complex. So.
And member Wood,
And that's not a specific, that's kind of a broad recommendation, but it is specific, meaning it's looking at those. And you're right, Leanne, it is almost copy paste right from our document. So then the question becomes, who's making the decision on what's, age appropriate there? Is it just, because otherwise we could just take the document and copy and paste it. But I think it's adding some more to that. So, Board Member Green?
Well, I appreciate Member Wood's question about being a curriculum issue or a standards issue. And I don't have an answer to that right now. I have to go back. Member Earl, if you've looked at that side by side just in the last week, I think what this specific curriculum just needs, and I can't help but wonder if the other curriculums have this built in now, again, having kind of worked through this entire process from beginning to end, being anxious to see what this looks like, very, very anxious, and hopeful. And I overall, I was very relieved and very thankful. And again, I'm bringing things to make it better, not tear it down and tear it apart. It's to make it better. There were gaps in some of these processes, in some of these areas.
So we're going to go ahead.
Well, if I can, I'm just collecting my thought here, is that just the heaviness of this to be given all of those abuses to 8 and 9-year-olds that have maybe never, they don't even know what abuse is. I think it just we just need to communicate feedback as a committee. We're going to start here because they don't want to be contacted with just single board members. So I have to bring this here. The public needs to understand I am required to bring this to this space. This is quite literally the most appropriate channel that I bring this information to after I've worked directly with the district through this process. And so if we can just address that, and then again, building in the resiliency of how we can help these students manage and process and engage in a positive way with what they do with these issues. One thing I'd like to highlight that I was very grateful for, they say, everybody hold up your hand, everybody close your eyes. And I want you to think through 5 different people that are your trusted adults, people that are over 18. They talked and they clarified because someone said brothers. Are they over 18? Yes. Awesome. Right there. And then they worked through and they said, if you go to the first person and they don't help, okay, what do? Can you go to the second person? What if it's not going anywhere that you need it to? Okay, you go to the third person. And they said it could be that you go to 5 people. And I appreciated that because it helped the students understand that, hey, if it's 5, maybe it could be 6, whatever it takes to get the help that you need. I love that it wasn't just 2. Sometimes it might not be 2. It could be 5. 5 means a lot to a little kid. So, I want to.
Hey, AG, don't. Sorry, do you need to interrupt or can we finish?
I'm done.
I'm afraid you're finished.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if this was something I just saw it pop up real quick, so I didn't mean to interrupt. Board Member Green.
That's okay.
Okay, do you have something you want to add to it?
Yeah, sorry, Board Member Green. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand with the meeting
I have the same issues.
Model. I was like, I don't know how to do this. So I wanted to, it's a little bit about what Vice Chair Wood had said, and then Board Member Reel, and you had brought up Member Green about whether or not this is a standards issue or what should we be doing. But when it comes down to the standards, if it's the standards, I want to remind the committee at this: the standards were made with DHHS, under the statute. The state board, along with DHHS, had gone through and created the age-appropriate instructional materials, where I believe DHHS has led out as the experts on this as what would be age-appropriate materials. So anything that would be changed, if the board wants anything changed, that material then have to go back through DHHS to have DHHS approve it as well. So it's not just a unilateral process. It would have to be a bilateral thing that goes through DHHS. So if it is a standards issue, it would have to be a much broader conversation. So I just wanted to raise that awareness for the committee as well.
Thank you.
Which that may be something worth discussing in January or February, right? Looking at some of those standards and maybe cleaning those up. Which I've actually heard some vendors say that some of them are confusing and stuff, or out of the realm. So, okay. Body, what would we like to do? Board members?
I'm wondering, what does it look like to further this discussion and engagement with PCAU?
Tanya, do you have an answer for that?
I'm not quite sure what the question is. Can you short?
Do I make motions to change curriculum? I don't necessarily want to do that. I would like to have a conversation where we can be a little bit more, just candid with our feedback, and trigger that dialogue with the bulleted points that I've discussed today.
So PCAU has been very workable with the suggestions that you provided to this point. I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. I'm sure that they are very willing to sit down and listen to the feedback. The only thing that you need to consider is that they have to move forward with an approved curriculum contractually. And so again, if you were not to approve them today, they would not be able to move forward with work until they have an approved curriculum. So the choices would be you provide them an extended approval while we talk about these issues and move forward, or you do not provide approval today, which means they would not be able to move forward with work. And then any changes that they make would have to come back through the whole entire approval process. They would have to resubmit, unless you as a board direct us to do otherwise. So we are
right. We could extend out for a month, right?
Yes, we are ready and willing as staff to work with PCAU and do as you direct us to.
So I wouldn't mind extending the approval to January. So because they have so much scheduled already to disrupt that, I would not feel comfortable. I am genuinely interested in furthering some discussion about again, just the before, during, and after parts, elements of this. And so if I could make a motion that we extend this approval to January. And
that I think would need to include in there that the already approved PCAU material be continued to use. That's not the right language. That they continue to use the material that's already approved until this item goes through.
Currently approved material.
Chair Earl, Deputy Superintendent Voorhees, and I'm sharing, so I can't raise my hand.
So the motion member Green is making, this isn't a motion related to this curriculum, right? It's related to, is it?
It's the organization's curriculum.
Yeah, but I mean, the curriculum that was already approved in the contract we have with them, as opposed to the 24846.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
so
accurate.
Andrea, we need to move this, your motion up here, to under motions. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Tanya?
Yeah, I'd like to Deputy Superintendent Voorhees' point, I'd like to have some clarity on these existing motions that the committee made in the last committee meeting.
We can, I think we can move those.
Yeah,
like, approve those.
Can we do those first?
And Chair Earl, yeah, if I'm out of order here, that's okay. We can address the others first.
Yeah, we can do that first if you'd like to. Is there someone that would like to make that motion for the ones that we currently have before us? Nobody wants to make the motion? I'll make the motion.
Well, I think doesn't it have to have an exclusion in it? So I'm like trying to, I don't know.
So it would be
I'm happy to make a motion that we move forward with what we have now and then bring back for discussion in January feedback.
Yeah, that would work, right? And you'd give the number. Can you see the numbers? I don't know if you can see them, Joanne.
Yeah, let me make it bigger. Okay, so do I do them one by one?
I think they could, unless you have any specific changes, I think those could be all three together, unless anybody has a problem with that.
I'll make a motion to approve 24846 Boundary Town, 24847 Boundary Town, and 4848 Boundary Town curriculum. Is that?
Yeah, and if you were to incorporate, Emily, the changes requested, and that I guess you would.
And then incorporate
could we add on
the
to that,
changes
though?
that Emily's.
Yeah.
We do them as separate motions.
Yeah, that might be easier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting while Leah's typing so that I can read it better. So should I just make a motion for the first one?
Yes, except for I do have a question, and this may be AAG Dome's question here. If we approve it like this, then that would move those forward. Is that right? Or is this just approving the requested changes? Maybe that's what it's got to be.
Yeah, Cheryl, I'm a little bit confused. Are you moving this to the final board for December's approval to move forward?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that if in approving these right now, like the way this is written, it would move those forward and not to January. So it'd be.
It would move this to December. Yeah, I think you would have to include in here approve 24846 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January.
It wouldn't be for next week.
No, yes, because if you still want discussion on it, then I would.
Yeah, yep, for January, that would be right. And then we'd have to have a secondary motion in a minute to extend the other items, right?
Correct.
Currently used curriculum.
Correct.
Okay, are we good then? Joanne, does that look right?
I think that looks right. Do you want me to just read them one by one?
Yeah, go ahead and read. We'll take both one at a time. Maybe that's easiest if we've got separate ones on there.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the 24846 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January.
Okay, any other discussion to that?
Sorry, I just, again, to clarify, because this has been so confusing. So I thought there was only one group that so these ones are being moved to, we're pulling out the ones that we want to move to January, and then we can pass and move forward all the rest of them for December?
All the others are already on the agenda.
Okay.
All the others are on the agenda except for, and then we have one other organization at the bottom here.
And that one will also be December.
That one should be December unless there's additional motions that people have that I haven't heard any.
Okay.
So unless. Okay. So let's, so the first is Board Member Brenton moved to approve the 24846 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
I'm voting no, because I feel like they're ready to be moved to the December meeting as is.
Okay, thank you. So 4 in favor, 1 opposed, and that's Board Member Rill. Okay, next motion. Do you want to make that, Joanne, and then I'll read it out?
I move that we approve the 24847 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that that we move, motion before the committee is that we approve 24847 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, those opposed?
I'm no for the same reason as above.
Okay. So that is 4 in favor, 1 in opposition. Board Member Rill. Go ahead, Board Member Brenton.
Okay, I move that we approve the 24848 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that we approve the 24848 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Board Member Rill?
I'm a no, and I wanted also, while I have the mic, to mention that this bill was passed in 2024, and I'm hoping that we could have gotten through this a lot quicker.
And I think the contract's there. I think things are in place. So just draw attention to that. Okay, the last one on here, and then we can have, if there's additional comments. So
this one would be January as well, correct? Because this is still the Boundary Town trafficking curriculum. So we're still.
Yes.
This is January.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, because we have the trafficking and then the child abuse, right? They got the two. Someone tell me if we're off on that. That would be accurate.
That's correct.
Okay. So go ahead and make the motion.
I move that we approve the 24849 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that we approve the 24849 Boundary Town curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in January. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Okay, that's 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Board Member Rill. And then the last one on the bottom here is the Asian Association of Utah.
Okay, I move that the board approve 24838 curriculum and forward to the board for final approval in December.
Okay. The motion for the committee is that the committee approve 24838 and forward to the board for final approval in December. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's unanimous. Okay. And then we do have we've got to address the extended the current use of the curriculum. Yes. AAG Doan?
Carol, I just have to remind everyone that these instructional materials that were moved to January, they'll need to have an additional motion to have them come back for next week's committee meeting for discussion. So
Okay.
the agenda is back on.
Will we be ready to, will the organization be ready by then, or will we need to set up a separate meeting?
I think it has to, you could either motion for it to come back at the next committee meeting, or we could have it come back at a time that they're ready to come back, but either way, it needs to be motioned to come back to be agendized.
Someone help me think through that real quick, meaning December is a hard time to do another committee meeting. We could do early in January, or it can be next week. I'm not sure if that's with Thanksgiving, if that's enough time for organization to kind of look at it and give us some feedback. So
I
committee
think,
members.
well, another question I have for that, like if we are looking to have a conversation, what is the appropriate way? From our last meeting, my understanding is they did not want us to personally contact them, so it leaves, this avenue. Is it simply an email to communicate our areas of discussion that they would like? And if it is an email, how much time would they like to review?
Chair Green, I think I apologize. Board Member Green, I think it is that you would have to verbalize what your changes or your concerns are here in this public meeting. Staff will then take it back to PCAU and allow them the opportunity to review what you would like changed. And they can make those changes or come back for discussion at the next meeting that you set.
Will they be in that meeting?
We could invite them and they could come if they would like to come, or they could just pass along their comments to staff.
Okay, if do they seek feedback from their users? Like, would they like just some candid conversation?
Okay, I don't know. Is that what you're shaking? You don't know. So I think what we'd need to do is actually just make a recommendation. It comes back to a standard and assessment committee, and then direct staff to reach out to the organization with the feedback and have them respond back on maybe a time frame or, something like that. Does that sound, Vice Chair Wood? Does that feel like that's in the realm of the?
So are you saying that the actual changes will be brought back to standard assessment? Because sorry, I feel like I missed a meeting before the meeting, because generally with all of these things that we've done, we come with our concerns. We make motions to specify what concerns we want to change. That has gone back to the vendor, and the vendor has either said yes or no to those changes. They've come back to us, so we've approved them, and then it's moved forward. So I'm really confused with this. So we didn't have any actual changes that we were recommending today. We have some concerns. And we're concerned about curriculum that's being taught while we're moving forward on curriculum to be taught. Am I accurate in that? I remember this is my first go around. I've only been in standards a year. So all of you are, I'm a law and licensing girl.
Well, and I think that the thing, good questions. These are good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of gets crazy.
Yeah, and I think that the idea is that it is already being taught. I think they're doing an excellent job of that. I don't think that's being called into question. I think there's some questions around ways or concerns that may create a better delivery, especially if this is our primary this is the question, right? This is our primary entity that we are putting significant amount of money behind. And, I can't remember one other item I was going to share. And we're approving. Does that make sense? Like, this has to be approved in order to move forward. So it's asking them to just make sure that this is that best piece. And I don't think it's a criticism. So I hope no one takes it as that. It's just really reflective and asking, as we learn more, we incorporate more, right? We improve. And I think it's asking and just saying, will you just look at that and see if that really, with your organization, take into consideration the items that were asked to be of concern, or to see if there's greater clarity that could be created on that. And maybe not. They may look at it and say, this, we feel pretty strong about this, or they may look at it and say, we've listened to the discussion here. We've reached out to some stakeholders. We may have 2 or 3 things that I think could improve upon that. That's the way I'm understanding that.
But we're asking them to change things based on some kind of not specific talking points. We want them to bring.
No, the specific talking points are to look at ways to put some resilience components in there. If we want, we can give specific things, right? But I don't think that's.
I would like a discussion. I would love to have a discussion directly with them if I have permission. I could maybe reach out to them as a parent. So, and remember what I feel like we are a little bit hamstrung here on how to do this effectively. I did send an email that had those itemized, talking points. And I'm bringing this as a committee because I wanted to discuss with the committee, because that is our work. From discussion, prompts solutions, and it prompts motions. If we want to go into specifics, we could. However, I would rather, again, it's just like some positive, customer service type responses that we're addressing right now. I've isolated it to the 3rd grade class. I feel like 3rd grade is a crossover age. And I just want to have a conversation and not to member Reels arguments with the experts about the terminology that's being presented. And then I would like to see if they have training or what their procedures are as they engage with districts and LEAs on what engagement looks like before, during, and after the delivery of these lessons. And then as far as changing the curriculum, I do think building in more resilience pieces throughout the entire presentation would be helpful. And I say that because that was kind of spurred from, a very amazingly presented 35-minute presentation of 6 different types of abuses, and then children being sent out to play for recess, which is probably great. They can go get their wiggles out and their stress out and run it off on the grass, like whatever. But beyond that, you have little kids taking a very heavy topic home. And if a parent does not prod them and query them, and the child doesn't even feel like they can say words out loud that they learned that day at school, we have presented a product that we need to address, because that presents problems. So
yeah, and I sorry to interrupt, but I understand all that. I'm just trying to understand the process, because we just bumped K through 2 to January. So if your concerns were 3, we just bumped K through 2. I think that's why I'm just sitting here in confusion, because that's what I thought you said. Your concern was that 3rd grade.
It isolates, yeah.
But we just
I think
it could affect K through 2. One, and I only say that because it builds on each other. This curriculum, even per the counselor, you know, that those change as the grade goes up. So I know it's confusing. I think we're getting it. I think we're in a good place. I think our heart's in the right place and our efforts are in the right place.
So Deputy Superintendent Voorhees, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to make sure that I'm trying to summarize what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure that that is your expectation of me. So just tell me, just say, Deputy Superintendent, do this if I'm missing the mark.
Can I get just a quick clarification? We can't carry on any discussions. Is that what? And that's a legality? Tell me where that comes in. Where's that process at? And because I think there's something about having a discussion that you better understand. Anybody speak to that?
Chair Earl, I think we got lost in the weeds a little bit here. Board Member Green makes some really great questions and points about how the materials being taught at the LEAs, whether or not they're being combined into one day versus 2 days, or at the same time, what's happening prior to the instructional material being presented, what's happening post-instructional material being presented. That is a little bit outside of the scope of what your committee is here to do today. What your committee is really focused on today is R277630 and approving the instructional materials that come out of the statute that requires the sex abuse materials that Board Member Reel had mentioned that was approved that's passed in 2024. So when you go beyond, I think what Board Member Green is asking for is a larger discussion around sexual abuse material, child sex abuse material, and human trafficking, and that could be brought back as a discussion. I think just as a general discussion, as like an educational piece that like the board that you might want to study more. But as to the instructional materials, I don't know if it ties
two components to the, I think there's two components to the instructional material piece, because I think you're right, the delivery and all that's things that organization needs to take into consideration. But the two instructional pieces, materials piece, were resiliency, right? And also the other piece was I'm going to say heaviness of the content that was, and that may be the structure of combining it together, but it was making sure that the reflection of the content was age appropriate in the way it's structured. So those are curriculum structural pieces. So I guess we need to look at this motion here. So it'd be the delivery schedule that wouldn't be related, right? That's what you're saying. That wouldn't be related. The resiliency effort or emphasis is the adult academic language is, and then I think the other pieces are not related. Is that accurate? So Board Member Green, is that more reflective?
Well, and I'm trying to, because we are being asked to approve this as per the 730 rule or code. It seems that they hold hands, they work in tandem. The delivery is a representation of the material, which is a representation of a vendor that we approve. So one affects the other. And if anyway, so yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think we're asking great questions.
Is the language better? Yeah, is the language right? We've got to probably.
May I read it out?
Yeah.
Am I reading the committee action? Right there. Member moved to direct staff to reach out to PCAU to discuss the concerns that the committee discussed during this meeting, resilience, emphasis, and adult academic language, and bring the PCAU curriculum 24846-49 back to the Standards and Assessment Committee for consideration and possible approval. And so what is being asked then to keep it in line with this work is that we need to bring it back to curriculum. Is that correct?
Yeah, because that's what we're approving. We're not approving the letter that goes out or right or.
Okay, so may I clarify then with
Yeah.
that kind of view, the amount of information delivered in the amount of time that is kind of curriculum. How can we address that other than just give that feedback, but probably not curriculum? As the way it shows up in our document that we have here, it does say day 1, day 2. So that is showing the curriculum that we're approving today. So there's a little bit of disconnect there. And again, that was just simply just trying to like, figure it out. It seems that there is one, either 2 days or a 50-minute presentation. So anyway, I pass back to you.
Okay. Board Member Real.
I'm just curious, going back to what we were talking about, the standards that we have set that were in the code, and I'm wondering if when it comes to the adult academic language, if that's something the Department of Health and Human Services has worked on, that part of it is that if we have that partnership and they help write those standards and we're then looking at curriculum and we don't like the words that are being used, that's not really going to work out if it's in our standards, right?
Yeah, I need to go back because I can't recall that right now. That's going back, to DHHS, correct? And I don't have that in front of me. But definitely I'm going to look at that.
Because if it's in our standard, then, if let's say I'm contracted with the state to follow the standards to create my curriculum, and I followed the state standards to create my curriculum, we would have to go back to the standard to change the standard to then change the curriculum. Like, we can't ask them.
Not necessarily, because everyone else, I'm just saying other organizations were able to address that. They just didn't take I'm not even saying copy and paste, but I think we're asking for a consideration. That's what we're asking, and they can review that. If they feel like it's where they want to go, then do you know what I mean? I think.
So we're gonna okay. I don't love that because of all the process that we've gone through already, especially with DHHS. I don't love that, obviously, but you know how I feel about process. And I do think, though, like if I was PCAU, I would be feeling like, what are you asking for at this time? It feels a little non-specific in many ways. But those are just some of my thoughts I have.
And a nod to the process, I totally would reach out to them if I was allowed. And if I am allowed, please tell me I can.
AG Donut.
So I'm stuck with the committee, working through the committee, which I love the committee. We're good.
This is one of those hiccup things that gets frustrating because it's like you feel like you're hampered and you can't do the work in order to be thoughtful in the work. And we sometimes have this with standards too, where we're hampered. You can't actually engage with anyone, but go ahead and make decisions without engaging with the experts related to it. So that's why I'm trying to clarify. Is it something that needs to be run? We could do that, but it needs to be run through superintendency or leadership rights. Do you know what I mean? Are there certain people that need to be there in order to hold that type of a discussion? That's the question. I think it's a good question. Did anybody have an answer to that? So if not, we'll move a motion forward and maybe we just need to.
I think a little bit. Yeah, I think a little bit more time and just towards this. I have clarified probably 4 different times and emailed kind of what I'm looking for. If they want specific motions, please email me back. Let me know. I can work on that. Right now, I think conversation would solve a lot of problems. But for now, let's go ahead and vote on this and move forward. But it looks like we've got some other hands up.
AAG Doan.
Chair Earl and Board Member Gray, I just wanted to kind of clarify and maybe distill what Board Member Green was concerned about. It seems like what the discussion was that you have some concerns about whether or not the instructional material is age appropriate and the language that is being used is age appropriate, that is related to resilience emphasis, adult academic language. And so perhaps if your motion was to have them clarify whether or not this is age appropriate materials that are already approved within the minimum standards, or do you want, because I think staff is going to be staff is going to have to go back and explain what you guys are trying to clarify, and I think what I've been hearing is that you want to know if the language being used is age appropriate and should be used moving forward.
I think that's accurate. And I think we're articulating, or at least it's been articulated as adult academic language, right? And I guess the resiliency piece would be focusing on those preventative factors that's included in our discussions. Positive childhood experiences, right? I mean, I think that's that preventative language. So, okay. I don't know if we want to put that in there or not, or if it's enough to put the appropriate, age appropriate language. Are you, Board Member Green, is that good there?
Yeah, and I would like to see it with the minimum standards. Like if we can, and I'll spend some time
Okay.
looking that.
So maybe we just that comparison.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Coordinator Albanos.
Thank you, Chair Earl. I just wanted to bring up that you did, as a committee, add language to the minimum standards regarding that the materials need to cover protective factors, and I believe it also said positive childhood experiences, and that change occurred after this curriculum was already submitted for approval. So I just wanted you to be aware of that timeline. So
when did we change that? I thought we changed that last year.
No, that was Mindy, if you're on, August. That was in August.
Okay, and they submitted.
They had already submitted this material. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Are we ready? Do we feel like we're good?
Yep. I think we're
Board
good.
Member Green, if this is the motion you're going to make, I don't have a date. When did you want that brought back? Is this a December or is this a January?
January, I believe.
I wouldn't put a date on it. I'm just saying it could be to a standards and assessment committee for consideration, so that if we had a little bit of wiggle room on that, if we're able to get responses back, it may be we can do that in December.
But we need to know how long we're extending the contract, right?
Is this an extension?
Well, we're going to have to extend their contract for these pieces, right?
Right, but we're looking at the orange motion first, right? This is just bringing this in for having a response back to standards and assessment.
We just
want that. We could
send them to the full board, so then we'd have to extend their contract for a certain period of time, which means they need.
Right, but we've got to make that's another motion down in blue.
Okay, so this is open.
It's got to come back to committee. So if we left it open, if they responded sooner, we could do it before January. So we put January on it. We have to wait till January.
Okay, I'm just wondering how we determine then how long the contract or the curriculum that they're currently using can be extended then.
Well, I would
So, like,
recommend to in
only goes
January. It's
January, but
extended
then we
through
have
so
then-
like through June.
And they have a gap period. I don't know how their trainings and how they have everything set up. So I'm just guessing, but if we don't, it just feels like we need to make sure we extend them through when we're done with this piece.
I think we're anticipating approval in January. So if there was some their feedback would come back to us next week would be too soon, I would assume. It's Thanksgiving and stuff, so I don't think that would be appropriate to ask them that. So is that making sense, or is that not? Okay.
The way I'm reading what we have in front of us is that we are having a discussion with PCAU in the meantime, from now until a standards and assessment committee meeting for consideration, of which we have not disclosed that specific meeting. That way, if we allow time to have that developed, is that correct? And then
Yes,
we're hoping, it seems that we are hoping that will be done within the next month and a half or 2 months, and that this will be worked through. That will be coming back to us in January of 2026 for approval. So right now what we're doing,
that's what I would anticipate.
we're triggering a conversation and discussion about curriculum as in the motion, and then we are making a second motion to bring this back and for approval through January, hoping that we've been able to work through just some feedback.
Okay.
Do I need to make that motion?
Yeah, make the motion officially.
Okay. Move to direct staff to reach out to PCAU to discuss the concerns that the committee discussed during this meeting, adding resilience emphasis, and to clarify if the language is age appropriate, and bring to PCAU curriculum 24846 to 24849 back to a standards and assessment committee for consideration.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Board member Wood, are you on still?
Yeah, sorry, I just didn't know.
Were you a yes or no? I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
hear.
that's fine.
Okay. Okay, that passes 4-1. Board member Rosa, no. And we need one more motion though to extend their curriculum contract or their current
I'll make
curriculum.
that.
Okay.
Move to extend PCAU's currently used curriculum approval through January 2026.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, let me read it out. Sorry. Board member Green moved to extend PCAU's currently used curriculum approval through January 2026. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, I think that passed unanimously. Any other items any other discussion? Okay, I'm looking for a final motion.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, board member, I almost said Green. Board member Brinton, motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone that joined and for the discussion.
Thank you.